The majority of my friends were from TikTok, and I barely had a life outside of the internet, and I had no problem with it. I had somehow chased off everyone around me and rented a single flat alone. In the long run, I got unfortunate with my lucky streak of good online friends when I met Sarah, a photographer on TikTok who was an internet freak like me. During the early days of our friendship, we'd chat all day until midnight, and I always woke up to her good morning text. Ordinarily, her online presence was too extra, but a geek like me found solace in her friendship. "When would we meet?" she asked one night as I lay on my bed. "I'd be free this week," I replied, blushing. We'd been friends for 2 months, but I'd never seen her because she lived 2 cities away, which means she might have slept overnight if she came. However, her job had her stuck to her city, but she wanted to see me so bad and picked a weekend. "This weekend?" she asked. "Friday?" "I'd be home too," I affirmed. The week ran out and she informed me the moment she was leaving her city, as early as 6 a.m. Hours later, roughly into the evening, Sarah called me on her arrival in my neighborhood. It was easy thanks to my description and Google Maps. I scurried outside to wait for her under the lamppost. Minutes later, she arrived in a taxi. Sarah alighted from the taxi and ran towards me with open arms. "Jessie?" she giggled as she wrapped me in her arms. She looked familiar, like I'd seen her somewhere other than her picture and profile. I couldn't place it, but I was sure I had seen her somewhere else. I helped her lift her bag in as she locked the door behind me and ejected the key. I swiftly turned to watch her as she retrieved the key into her pocket. "You removed the key?" I gazed at her hand. "Oh, I'm sorry," she giggled and walked towards me. "This place looks like my home. Old habits, you know." She raised her brow with a look of understanding and helped me lift her bags to the visitor's room. I noticed she didn't return the key, but I waved it off and helped her settle in. Sarah had her bath and joined me in the sitting room where I cuddled my duvet with my eyes glued to my screen while I scrolled through my newsfeed. "You've got any neighbors?" She tried to hook a conversation, and it was at that point I realized she should have stayed as an online friend. "None," I muttered, turning to see her. "Just you? Must be fun." She giggled and took a seat adjacent to mine. I evaded her question with disgust in my voice. I suddenly saw a picture of her on my timeline. I raised my head to match the identity, and she caught my eyes in the act. She was the one. "What's that?" she asked. The name on the wanted serial killer list was Sandra with her picture. "Sandra?" I muttered loud enough for her to hear, and she responded by swinging a dagger from her nightwear, running towards me furiously. I jumped away from her line of sight, but she showed expertise by plunging towards me midair with the dagger aiming for my throat. I forcefully yanked the dagger before she regained balance and pulled it to cut her, but it only scratched her. I then pushed her with my feet and stumbled out of her way with the dagger in my hand now. I watched her stand up, and as I got the chance, I ran towards the back door, but she caught my leg just before I could escape and made me slip. It was dark outside, and I could barely see her. I turned and used the dagger to cut her hand. As soon as she let go, I scampered up and dashed into the darkness, running for my life.
All you have to do is upload a video of what you like the most about the school with the hashtag #SchoolIsEnding on TikTok, and we'll select the best, and then give an award to the person at the student final meeting, Jerry said. He was the student chairperson, the one who was in charge of making sure that things went well in the school, either socially, academically, and including relationships with the school staff. High school was a tough place, a place that could mold you into so many things, and I was sure that everyone who'd passed through that stage had 1 or 2 things to say about it. Jerry was a smart guy also. He knew that uploading videos on the internet was somehow permanent, because you could go back to it any day, and after so many years to just relive the memory. I walked up to my best friend as soon as Jerry finished talking and dismissed everyone, and I saw her wiping her tears. She was always the lively type, the type to wipe the tears of others and not cry herself. She turned around as soon as I tapped her and tried to clean her face of the tears that had stained her face. And when I asked about it, she laughed back at me and told me that it was nothing. She said she was just practicing for a drama that was coming up in her group. I couldn't help but believe her. She was indeed in the drama club, but even if she was practicing, the way she cried felt too real to just be for a play. I took my mind off it and chatted with her a little bit. And though her mind seemed off throughout the conversation, I bid her goodbye eventually and went back home. At home, my mind kept going back to Anne. I wasn't at peace with the reason she told me. Somehow, I just knew something else was up and she wasn't telling me the truth. I picked up my phone after trying to convince myself that I was thinking about it too much, but I couldn't still find peace within myself. I called her several times, sent voicemails and text messages, but she didn't reply to any. My intuition was at its peak, and I couldn't just ignore. I was always right, about 90% of the time. I kept calling her while trying to dress up to go to her house, but she still wasn't picking up. Something kept telling me that something was off for every minute that I wasted not being able to reach her, and I resorted to calling her mom, even though I wasn't really a fan of who she was as a mother. I tried her several times till I finished dressing up, and she was not picking up as well. I said goodbye to my parents and headed for her house. I listened to calming songs on the way, and when I reached her house, everywhere looked calm and all the lights were on. I almost turned around when I noticed a dark figure of what I was sure was a man running out of the house. I was a bit confused because I knew that Anne didn't have a brother and her dad was at the other side of town, which meant there wasn't supposed to be any guy in her house, except if she had a boyfriend that she'd not told me about. I walked a little bit further, hoping to catch whatever was going on, but I was forced to stop when I noticed the same figure running back into the house, but with a long stick in his hand. He hit the door several times, and when it finally opened, he threw the stick away and ran inside in anger. Different TikTok sounds played in the background at the highest volume, which was kind of weird also because Anne was not a TikTok fan. She didn't even have the app on her phone, much less talk about watching videos on it. What's the point of the application, really? I don't just fancy it. Like other social media applications are not enough? Just waste time I could use to read, she said the other day when I tried to show her a video that I thought was funny. It was true that she was a nerd. She read a lot, but I just hoped that she'd wake up one day and just want to get social. The house suddenly became silent, and the lights flickered for a few seconds before going dark completely. I used the nearby bushes as a cover in case anyone that wasn't Anne could see me from inside the house. The light in the house came on brighter this time around, and screams followed. I panicked because the voice was too familiar to ignore. I knew that voice anywhere. Anne was in danger. I ran to the entrance of the house, and it was locked. I pulled on the handle several times, but the door wouldn't open. I ran around the house for any window that was open, but they were all locked. I could feel myself almost in tears for her. She was hurting, and I couldn't do anything for her. While thinking about what to do, a TikTok sound came on for a few minutes and then went off. What exactly is the TikTok sound for? I thought. I came out of my thoughts when I heard footsteps approaching the front door. I need to do something, I thought. I ran to the door quickly, picked up the stick that the figure dropped earlier, and waited patiently behind the door for whoever was going to walk out of the door. The door opened rather abruptly and almost hit me when the figure came out. I didn't waste any time hitting him on the head, and he fell to the ground almost immediately and went lifeless. Anne? I yelled into the house before turning the body on the floor to face me. Jerry? I questioned myself before Anne walked out. What's Jerry doing here? Anne began to cry and hugged me as soon as she saw that he was on the floor. Tell me what's going on. Are you okay? I asked her gently as I rubbed my hand on her head. He and my mom, they've been... She couldn't complete the statement, but I knew where she was going. If it was her mom, I just knew where it was going. Her mom was what people called a madam, and she didn't exclude her daughter being one of her workers, and apparently Jerry was one of her clients. I was quite shocked because I didn't expect Jerry to be involved in anything like that. He was too good and responsible of a man to do things like that. I wondered what would happen when others hear about it. And the TikTok sounds? I asked her. She shook her head. before telling me that Jerry just had a weird obsession with TikTok and always loved to use the sounds to do anything he wanted. I hugged her again. It's high time we reported your mom. I'm sure you've had enough, and so have I. She nodded, and we walked into her house while I dialed 911.
For most of us, Christmas is associated with family gatherings, presents, laughter, and of course, Santa Claus. But this isn't the case for me. I haven't celebrated Christmas in about 10 years. On every December 25th, I get on high alert. My entire mood changes, and instead of a Christmas tree, I barricade my windows and use all the 5 locks on my door. You may be wondering what happened to me. You may think that a burglar or something broke into my house one time at Christmas, but that's not the case at all. Let me take you back 10 years. I was 19 at the time. I've been living on my own since I graduated high school. I had a job and I was independent. I'm only saying this to emphasize the fact that absolutely no one was in my house except me. On December 24th at exactly 7 p.m., things started to happen. My living room was filled with ornaments and Christmas cheer. Above all that, I also had a Christmas tree. As I was saying, at 7 p.m. sharp, my bathroom door slammed shut. The powerful bang interrupted the Christmas carols that were playing on my laptop. The impact was so great that a little statue of Rudolph that I had on my mantle fell to the floor and broke into a million pieces. At first, I thought that something had exploded. I went to check everything inside the house, but nothing seemed out of the ordinary. The only thing that was different was the closed bathroom door. I blamed it on a draft that might have resulted in the slamming of the door. Let's skip forward, and it was now 8:04 p.m. At exactly that time, the lights started to flicker. Being a rational person at that time, I suspected that it had something to do with the upcoming snowstorm that was announced on the news. This only happened for about 10 minutes, but I had a feeling of nervousness taking over me. I was agitated, and at that moment, I didn't know why. That was just the beginning. At 8:59 p.m., I was on the couch watching a Christmas movie. My lights were off because I didn't want any annoying flickering anymore, and I was starting to fall asleep. Just before an exciting part, the screen went gray. Then lines began coming from the side, squiggling so rapidly until they turned into static. Static? The last time I saw a TV doing this was in 1999, I said. I started pressing the buttons on the remote. Without any success, nothing happened, until the static turned black. I thought my TV was busted. Great, Merry Christmas to me, I said, while I got up from the couch, going toward the TV so I could check the connections. But before I could take a third step, for a split second, someone appeared on the screen. From what I could tell, in that short amount of time, a head popped up. I didn't notice any discernible features, but one thing caught my attention. The fact that instead of eyes, he had 2 black holes. I stood there for a second to see if it would appear again. What kind of program did the satellite catch? I said. But before I knew it, my movie came back on, right where it left off. I continued watching it. Moving forward, it was 9:33 p.m. The movie was almost over, and my eyes were starting to shut. In one of the ending scenes, the main character was buying a Christmas present for his daughter after pursuing it for the entire movie. As he stood there, in frame, holding the doll, I noticed something behind him. A tall man, dressed in black, with pale complexion and black holes for eyes, was in the background of the store. I got up and got closer to the TV, but it quickly cut to another scene. I couldn't rewind it as it was on cable. I must be really tired, I said. The movie ended and I decided to go to sleep. At 10:37, I was ready for bed. As I went toward the stairs, I saw that a globe was misplaced in my tree. I went over to put it in its correct position. It was red and shiny, almost like a mirror. After I did it, I noticed that I wasn't the only one who had a reflection on it. There was a figure behind me. I screamed and turned around, almost knocking the tree over. Of course, no one was there. My heart was beating fast now. I blamed it on my fatigue, so I went to bed. I fell asleep quite fast and didn't toss or turn like I usually do. It was 3:33 a.m. I was sleeping without a care in the world, but I felt something all of a sudden. Some sort of external pressure was being placed on my neck. I immediately opened my eyes. I tried to get up, but I couldn't move. It was like something was on my neck, and beside the fact that I couldn't move, I couldn't breathe either. I tried to fill my lungs with air, but my airways seemed blocked. My vision was getting blurry. I was almost passing out. Right before I did, the pressure was off. I could breathe again. I stood up and gasped for air until I managed to calm down, but I felt some sort of pain around my neck. I turned on my lamp that was on my nightstand. My room was empty. It was only me. But as I turned my head from left to right, that piercing pain got worse and worse. I got out of bed and went straight to the bathroom. Upon looking in the mirror, I saw that there was bruising all around my neck, from one side to another. "What the hell?" I asked as I was running my fingers on the damaged skin. "When did this happen?" I kept wondering. As I shifted my attention away from the bruises, 2 black holes were staring at me. The man I saw on the TV, in the movie, and in the reflection from the globe was standing there, right behind me. I turned around, hoping it was just a figment of my imagination, but to my surprise, he was as real as it gets. There he stood, tall, pale-skinned, black holes instead of eyes, and when he smiled, well, that's when my heart nearly stopped. 2 rows of sharp, black teeth appeared right before my eyes. I backed up until I reached the wall. The man started floating toward me. "Who are you? What do you want?" I asked him while putting my arms in front of me. He didn't say anything. He just smiled. I was crouched in the corner, defenseless. His face got close to mine, so close that we nearly touched. "No, please get away!" I yelled. The man didn't care for my reaction. He lifted his bony white finger. He then pointed it toward my face and touched my cheek. It started to burn so bad. It was like a hot iron held against my face. "Please!" I yelled again. The pain was so unbearable. My body was going into shock. I fainted, and everything went black. At 7:12 a.m., I opened my eyes. I was in my bed. "Oh God, what a nightmare," I said while smiling. I was relieved that it was only a bad dream. I decided to stay in bed for a couple of minutes more, but when I went to the bathroom, I looked in the mirror. A round mark was on my cheek. It looked like a burn mark, and my neck was bruised. I stood there in silence as I thought. It was all real.